you have some homework to do. The homework is this. Okay, I get it. Stress test changes. It's hard to follow. It's like following a movie with a bad plot line. You just don't understand where you are. All the time, they're constantly making changes to the stress test, to the rules. Is it conventional? Is it insured? Is it uninsurable? Is it insurable? What is it? All the things. I know it's hard to understand, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. But before I get into it, I've gone to the trouble of doing you the favor of making this video. If you would be so inclined, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget, we're going to give away $5,000 to one lucky winner as soon as we hit 25,000 subscribers. I sincerely hope that it's you, but you have to be subscribed in order to win. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the other side of the intro. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit. Product, penalty, price, in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. Okay, so let's get into it. I know. It's crazy. I know how you feel. It's another stress test change. And this has been the one constant since 2016 is that there's going to be changes to the mortgage rules, and they're going to come frequently, especially when the market is on the rise. And that's what I want to discuss today is the new rule effective June 1st that is now not just effective for uninsured mortgages, but also effective for insured mortgages as well. Because like I said in my previous video, when they first announced the changes or the potential changes to the stress test, I said, you know, there's probably a pretty good likelihood that they're going to do this, not just for uninsured mortgages, but for insured mortgages, and that the Department of Finance is probably going to follow suit. And at the time, I thought that they were going to do it in the budget, in the federal budget, but they were actually smarter than that. Instead of creating chaos around budget time, what they did is they decided to wait until OSFI made it official. And then what they decided to do was to simply follow suit and align the rules, which is probably a good thing that the rules are aligned because it makes my job as a mortgage broker a lot easier. But let's talk about what it means for you, because here's what it means for you. It means about a 4 to a 5% decrease in purchasing power effective June 1st. And normally we would go to BNN, Bloomberg, we would go to the Financial Post for the information on this. But today, no, we're going to Canada Mortgage Trends, because Canada Mortgage Trends, which is an industry newsletter, has probably the most accurate and up-to-date information with respect to changes to the stress test. Now, obviously, these are things that have been communicated to us via OSFI, via the finance minister, via the insurers, but Canada Mortgage Trends is the place where you would most easily find this information. So we're going to rip through it. We got some new technology here on the channel today, and obviously we're always upgrading as you have seen throughout the past. And, you know, we're just going to go through and dive into all of the information right now. Here's the gist of it. So in the past, what has happened is that the Bank of Canada set what was called the benchmark rate. And the benchmark rate was basically the average of the 5 major banks' 5-year posted rate. And that was the rate that was used to qualify you. And it was typically higher than the rate that you would qualify at. By the way, there was one other way that they could qualify you at, and that was at 2% higher than whatever the contract rate was, and you had to qualify whichever was higher of either the benchmark rate or 2% above the contract rate. So let's say you were getting an interest rate of 3.79, you would have to qualify at 5.79, or if you had to qualify at the benchmark rate, it would be 4.79, and that was for if you were getting mortgages that were obviously in the 1.5% to 2.5% range, which is basically where they've been for the last year. So the Bank of Canada no longer is in control of these rates. I guess they are to a certain extent, but they're no longer in control of these rates. Who is now controlling these rates is OSFI, which is the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, and the federal government, or the finance minister to be exact. And what they're doing is they're taking the position that now, instead of letting the banks determine what the qualifying rate is going to be, which is basically whatever their 5-year posted rate is, or the average of the 5 major banks' 5-year posted rates, now they're saying we're just going to take a look at this every single year, and based on what's going on in the market, we're going to change the qualifying rate. Now, there's good and bad to this. Now, the good to this is that this is no longer in the hands of private organizations, or I guess public organizations, but publicly traded organizations in the 5 major banks. They no longer have the ability to determine what people have to qualify at for their mortgage, because again, what has happened in the past is that they basically get to control the qualifying rate by controlling what their 5-year posted rate is. And that obviously has some conflicts. And obviously, if the 5 major banks are having conversations and colluding as to what posted rate should be, which I don't think they do, but which they could do, that could be the incentive for them to do. Well, obviously that creates a scenario where Canadians aren't qualifying for as much mortgage as they should. Now, the bad of this is that now this is in the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions, so the bank regulator's hands, and it is in the hands of the Department of Finance. And the problem with that is that they can pretty much do whatever they want. So now it is not the market setting the rate, it is essentially the government. And that can be good in some circumstances when maybe the qualifying rate is too high and there isn't as much pressure on rising interest rates. But it can also be bad from the perspective of the fact that they can pretty much make the qualifying rate whatever they want. And if the government deems that people are qualifying for too much house, all they have to do is increase the qualifying rate, and then guess what? Well, now you don't qualify for as much house as you used to. So there's good and bad to this. I don't really ever love when the government intervenes in free markets. I think that's a bad thing. I think that this should more have to play out from the perspective of what happens in jobs and interest rates and everything else. But hey, that's where we're at the moment. Is as of June 1st, the qualifying rate will go from 4.79 to 5.25. Now, here's what that means for you. If you are in the market for a house, you have some homework to do. The homework is this, is to make sure that you've either got a solid approval or a solid pre-approval prior to June 1st with a lender that is going to honor your pre-approval at the pre-increase interest rate. Because here's what's happening. They're treating the increase in the qualifying rate as if it's just a normal increase in the qualifying rate. So as if the 5 major banks had all increased their 5-year fixed rate to 5.25, that's how they're treating it. So therefore, the rules are if you have a pre-approval or an approval prior to that date, then you get to qualify at the previous rate. So your job right now as a consumer is to go ahead and make sure that your lender, your broker, whoever you're dealing with, has a pre-approval in place that allows you to purchase and qualify at the previous rate. Now, I get that all this is complicated. I get it's tough to understand. It's definitely a lot more than what we can put into basically a 7 or an 8-minute video on YouTube. And we have a homebuyers boot camp for exactly that. I'll link to the description below where I go through exactly how the stress test works. And that course is priced very reasonably. I fully expect, in fact, I guarantee there's one thing I've done in that course, just one thing I've done in that course, that guarantees that you will get 10 times your money back. So if you could put $1 into a machine and it gives you $10 back, no, this isn't Las Vegas, but it guaranteed would give you $10 back. Would you do it? Well, in this case, we've set up this course so that if you put $100 into that machine, not only will you get $1,000 back, but you will also get all the information you need to make an informed decision on buying a house. And no, we're not just going to give you $1,000 back, but we are going to give you at least $1,000 worth of offers that make sense for you to purchase that course and follow through with it so that you absolutely 100% get 10 times your money back. Now, here's the thing. You got to make sure that your pre-approval is set up, your approval is set up, and you've got to check and double check and make sure that you get it in writing. Because if that 5% decrease in purchasing price would affect you, you need to 100% and absolutely make sure that you've got that pre-approval in place prior to the date. And there are some brokers out there that don't do pre-approvals. There are some lenders out there that don't do pre-approvals. There are some lenders there that will hold the rate for you, but won't necessarily underrate your pre-approval. So what you need to do is you need to make sure that you're protected and that the people that you have entrusted to protect you are people that you 100% and absolutely can trust. Now, if that isn't the case, I recommend that maybe you go out at this point in time and get a second opinion, maybe go and get multiple pre-approvals, maybe from multiple different brokers, maybe from multiple different lenders, or probably the best case scenario is just come to Mortgage 360 and we'll make sure that we've got your back. Now, the one thing to make sure of is if you do go out and get a second opinion and you do go out and you get multiple pre-approvals from multiple different lenders, make sure that at the time that you go and actually purchase a house that you choose just one to deal with. Don't deal with multiple lenders at the point of approval because it can create all sorts of problems. You don't want that. But at this stage, making sure that you have a pre-approval that covers you to qualify at the previous qualifying rate is definitely something that I think is prudent. And then once you go ahead and you've got a live offer, you've got a live deal, then go ahead, pick the one that you trust the most, the one that you like the most, and go ahead and get that final approval. So this is all about covering your assets, making sure that you've got a pre-June 1st pre-qualification, pre-approval in place, and making sure that it is not just with the broker, but with a lender or with a lender who will honor that pre-approval past June 1st. So this is all about what you do right now and how much time and effort you put into making sure that you do your homework and that you are 100% confident that you are pre-approved. The changes, I think they're good. At the end of the day, they're going to look at this every year. The good news is we know we've got stability at least for another year with respect to qualifying rate. I don't foresee interest rates going up anytime soon. I know Tiff Macklem, which we'll talk about on the next video, has said to Canadians, don't expect interest rates to be low for a long time and that the housing market will increase year over year over year, and that you can expect that those things will come back into line in the future. I can definitely agree with that, but we'll cover that in the next video. And until then, again, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and hit that like button, especially if you thought this video was useful. And don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers, where we're going to give $5,000 to you or another subscriber just for subscribing to this channel to put towards their RESP, their RSP, their TFSA, or their mortgage. Winner's choice. We'll see you in the next video.